Welcome. Thank you all for joining me today to talk a bit about Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. A law that was finalized in April of 2024 is going to come due in April 2026. And we're here to talk about the implications of that law for the work we do. It does apply to all state and local governments, including the schools, public, community colleges, and public universities, to make sure that all of our services, all of our programs, all of our activities are accessible. Specifically, that's going to mean websites and apps in this digital world. So that's probably going to be our focus today. Wonderful panel assembled today. Thanks to all of you for being available for this. I welcome Leah Gutknecht, who serves as the Assistant to the President and Director of the Office of Civil Rights Compliance at the University of Northern Iowa, where she is also the Title IX officer and leads efforts toward equal opportunity and affirmative action. With a bachelor's degree in design and the human environment and a master's in business administration, both from UNI, Go Panthers, Leah brings a unique blend of creativity and strategic insight to her leadership role. Her work is grounded in a strong commitment to equity and inclusion, and she plays a key role in fostering a respectful and supportive campus environment. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you.
Also, Magdalena Galloway
That's me.
is an instructor in learning technologies with the Department of Elementary and Middle Education at UNI's College of Ed. With over 2 decades of experience at UNI, she brings a rich academic background that includes a master's degree in communication and training technology from UNI and another in pedagogy with a specialization in media in education from the University of Adam Mickiewicz in Poznań, Poland. Her teaching focuses on educational technology, visual literacy, and instructional design, and she is passionate about preparing future educators to integrate technology effectively into diverse learning environments. Welcome, Magda.
Yep.
And lastly, Dr. Amy Nielsen serves as Associate Provost for Faculty at the University of Northern Iowa and is also a professor of special education here. Her academic and professional work centers on inclusive education, on literacy development for children with complex communication needs, and the role of technology in supporting learning and inclusion. With a strong foundation in qualitative research and a passion for capturing the narratives of individuals with disabilities and their families, Dr. Nielsen plays a key role in shaping faculty development and advancing equity in education at UNI. Welcome to all three of you. Thank you for being here. I'm thinking that we'll break our conversation down into 3 broad questions. 1, what is this and why is it important? And then 2, what are the challenges that brings to our work? And 3, what is going to make it possible to address those challenges now and down the road? So to begin with, why is this important? What is this? What does digital accessibility, mean to you? Leah, maybe you could get us into this topic.
Sure. So I'm from the perspective of a little bit of more the legalistic perspective, being the director of the compliance area and being the ADA coordinator for the university. ADA, again, as you said, Jonathan, is Americans with Disabilities Act. And last year, they announced new regulations that will go into effect for UNI April 26th of 2026. Other schools have one more year than we do, but we are a large state school, so we have the earlier deadline. And what it's really focused on is making sure that we provide accessibility for every person trying to take advantage of our offerings at the university. And so getting ourselves in the mindset of how do we make sure that we're not ruling someone's opportunity out from the beginning because they can't even get to our materials, they can't read our website, they can't take advantage of videos, et cetera. But it's really, to me, goes back to an idea that's been around for a very long time, and that being universal design, is if we were to put ourselves in the shoes of a universal design specialist and thinking through how we do our work in a way that allows everyone to access our work instead of defining it how we want and then worrying about people asking for accommodations. We'd really prefer to get to the point where people don't have to ask for accommodations. By April of 2026, we're working diligently to make sure that all areas of our digital footprint on our campus are accessible. So we have to stop and think, how all does that impact us? And it's very broad. It's our website, it's our videos, our audios, our social media, all of our course content that faculty put together. It includes any type of presentation that any of our staff members give. It just every little thing that we do. And so obviously this impacts faculty a lot because all of their course content, no matter what that looks like, needs to be accessible. Our staff now maybe dabble in different pieces of that. Maybe somebody only does presentations. Maybe someone works heavily in video. Maybe somebody's job is all about website content. So we have to have everyone on the same page working together on this. And so we are working diligently to come together as a university to have a unified approach to how we not only approach the compliance to the new regulations for Title II, but how do we carry this into the future so that it's not such a heavy lift from here on out, but how can we do this in a way that carries out into the future as well?
Great questions. Thank you, Leah. And Magda, you are our representative here of the classroom experience for faculty with this new obligation. And how do you speak to digital accessibility? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, so I work with future teachers. So for me, the most important part is that I'm modeling, and I also try to help them build some kind of the way of they will be curating or creating resources. So from the get-go, they have to think about how they're creating something for their students. The way I see digital accessibility, I see it through the lens of universal design for learning, which is, providing multiple means of presentation, of action, of engagement for students, so everyone can learn in their own unique ways from the same pool of resources. But also, I see digital accessibility as a design thinking. And that's that kind of larger school that came not just from education, but from the architecture, from design, that talks about designing with empathy, thinking about people on the margins. So not looking through your own bias to what your ability, but who can be excluded. So every design, every creation is a challenge of how to create something that does not exclude anyone. Who would be excluded from my video, from my website, from my creation, from my physical classroom or whatever. So that's how I see it. Also, as a parent, I observe my children. They reacting with the resources way different than I used to, and they do take advantage of accessibilities despite the fact that they may not have any disabilities. They interact with the video in a different way than I did. They use it because they're using captions because it's apparently old. If you listening to your videos when they're loud, you're supposed to listen very quietly with the captions underneath. Actually, I'm using it because English is my second language, especially if I'm watching like British movies. I need captions. So it doesn't have to be just designed for people with disabilities with a big D, but for everyone who has a different ways of interacting with resources. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Magda. Amy, you can give us that view from the crow's nest, looking across all of the university's academic functions.
Sure. And maybe what I can do is kind of marry both of these perspectives just a bit. As many of you know, I'm serving in the role of our associate provost for faculty. And so my responsibility is to support all faculty, staff as well, as they're doing their good work across campus. And in doing that, these regulations somewhat landed in my lap when people started to ask me, well, how will we ensure faculty coursework and material is accessible? And so it felt very natural that this initiative might be housed within the provost office, at least the academic affairs side. And in doing as much, it felt very comfortable to me because I am also a special educator by trade. And so it's something that I've been very passionate about, this idea that we want to create spaces and environments where everyone has an opportunity to make a contribution and to engage. And so, like Magda, I often think about universal design for learning and how can we design our spaces and our classrooms using multiple avenues for learning and understanding and making a contribution. And when we do that really well, we serve all students. And so getting back to that lens of the crow's nest, one of the things that I spend a lot of time thinking about in the provost office is not only how do we serve faculty, but how do our faculty serve our students? And we know that we are an access institution. We know that we're serving many first-generation students. And so to serve those students really, really well, thinking about access, not just as a mandate, as something we have to do, but something as an opportunity to increase our students' learning, their growth, retention on campus is, I think, very, very important.
Wonderful. Thank you all. So now I wonder if we could lean into the challenges that this raises for faculty in particular. Leah, you talked about trying to be proactive versus reactive to the issues of disability as they come up. And Magda, you talked about empathy, and Amy about access broadly considered. I could understand a faculty member saying, well, I would like to be proactive versus reactive, but the truth is I've got Title IX breathing down my neck. I have to react to that. It's something that I need to respond to in order to comply with the law. So I can imagine faculty feeling like, really? We've dealt with pandemics and a number of technological challenges as well as cultural. This is a new challenge. It will be across the board. What do you see as the challenges ahead, whether they be technical and technological or cultural, for this work as we try to comply?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's a mindset shift that we need to embrace because it is not going away. It's not a one-time and done project. It's an ongoing thing. And so it's a mindset that we need to shift people to into the future. But when we talk about where do we start, several of us are on a team that we've put together, and there's a robust team in academic affairs that funnels into a campus-wide team that we've put together. And one of the first steps that we've been attempting to do is define where exactly are our needs to make sure that we fully understand what are we doing well on campus, where are we meeting this mandate, and where are we falling short. And instead of jumping toward, oh, there's some shiny new vendors out there that offer some new tools, really taking the moment to understand, no, before we adapt all these other things, where are we falling short so that we know where our gaps are? And it's really a difficult challenge for people to undertake. That's been one of the most challenging parts of the team process, is really focusing on what are we doing well, where do we have it together, where are the gaps, what are we missing, so that we then can plan, how do we fill those gaps? How do we best fill those gaps? How do we prioritize those gaps so that we know that we're focusing in on issues that are meaning the most to the most number of people on our campus, including our students, including our faculty and our staff. And we have to get to that prioritization so that we're not misaligning what limited resources that we have. So that's been a big next step for us, and a big challenge at the same time is really getting ourselves to really, really focus on where are we and where do we need to go.
Thank you.
Leah, I really appreciate that you, if you don't mind,
Please.
I was just thinking about that notion of a mindset shift. I think that might be our biggest challenge, because I sense that, and I too, if I were still teaching as a faculty member, how overwhelming it will feel, or might already feel, this task of making all of my content and materials accessible. I'm not very technologically inclined in that area. I'm not sure I would understand how to do that. And when I think about faculty teaching across multiple sections, multiple courses, that would feel very overwhelming to me. And I might react initially, why do I have to do this? And I think my response, as a person who taught special education, as a disability studies scholar, is to think about it through the lens of civil rights, that we have populations of people who have been excluded from learning and from opportunity merely because they've not been able to access the material. And so it really feels like a moral imperative from my perspective that if we can do this, we can live our values as a campus, and we can, when we say we are student-centered, when we say we desire to meet all students' needs, if we can make our digital content accessible, we can live that, what we might be articulating. And so I think there's a strong connection there, but it will require perhaps a move from, oh, this feels like a lot and I'm not sure where to start, to, oh, this is an opportunity to improve my instruction, to meet the needs of my students, to perhaps meet them where they are, recognizing that they are very different learners than they were 5 to 10 years ago.
So I'm thinking about the challenges that are coming from sometimes ignorance or lack of empathy, but not because we are cruel.
No,
We're not
yes,
empathetic.
we are very well intended.
It's just sometimes there is a saying that you never understand hungry person if your belly is full, and you can understand really person who cannot hear or cannot see if your vision is perfect. You do not know how to be quiet at night if you're falling asleep in 2 seconds and you don't have to, versus person who has is a light sleeper, right? So now I understand that someone sleeps, I better be quiet because I know they may. So if you're ignorant about how others perceive information or interact with information, you just don't understand it. So many people trivializing it, and it's absolutely normal. How many times you in a room when someone says, oh, I don't need microphone, I have a perfect voice. And someone from the background have to say, no, we record it, we have Zoom, we do need to use it. And it's not because they're arrogant. They just don't know, they don't understand that the technology piece is important there. So my challenge, my thinking about what challenge for us as a faculty is to expose ourselves to the different scenarios, to better understand, to see how screen reader works, to see how some text with a caption versus without captions. Even in our Unidom, whenever their video plays, I cannot understand anything. And I'm pretty sure it's not just because English is my second language. Mm-hmm. I think many people could use the caption. So expose ourselves to scenarios to better understand the need and how it helps. And then it will come like, okay, I'll pay better attention from now on. I'll do something better. Does it make sense?
Absolutely.
It does. I think for many faculty, part of the shift that may take place in the future is experiencing a student who has a particular need. And once you get to know a student who may need the text via audio or may need closed captioning, and you begin to kind of understand their daily experiences and you're connected to them. As all faculty, we fall in love with our students. And I think when that happens with a student who really needs this access in order to be successful, I think that helps propel kind of a cultural shift to, yes, this really makes sense for all students. And with that, I think we can't always know exactly what mode or medium might be best for a student. And so when we are planning from this perspective of universal design, and we've prepared kind of a variety perhaps of materials or different avenues to present it, we are much more likely, I think, to meet those students in front of us, because we can't always know exactly what those needs might be.
And it might, as you mentioned, Amy, be daunting at the beginning.
Yes.
To think about, how do I need to rethink how I do this work? How do I rethink my course content? And yes, on the front end, that might feel daunting. But if we put ourselves back in the shoes of, the first time we used Word, the first time we used Excel, it was daunting, but we kept after it and we learned it, and now it's second nature to us. And that's where I see us being in just hopefully not too long of a time period, that we will all feel that this is now second nature because we've embedded it into how we do our work.
That is so accurate, because one of the things that's happened in the provost office, for example, is serving on this larger committee with Leah, working with Karen and Wilson. It's been at the forefront in a way that perhaps it hasn't been in the last year or so. And so I keep bringing the conversation up to some of my administrative staff as we're looking at revising the website and thinking about, we've got to think about this now. And so in part, I think just raising awareness to start to have a conversation to begin to prioritize what are the areas that perhaps we could focus on.
Yeah. And that empathy. Little things like, do you like interacting with your cell phone content when you have sub menus and your fingers are cold because it's Iowa winter and you have to go through sub menu and click, find the resources? Those kind of questions. I'm not feeling comfortable interacting with these resources. What about my students who may have not very stable hands or some kind of device that helps them? So starting from ourselves, again, build that empathy and provide the scenarios. It would be fantastic if some students who have some disabilities, if they are willing to share in an empowering way, to show what devices they have, how they're interacting with resources, educate other teachers or their teachers. Not like, okay, I need to know what's wrong with you. It's like, I want to know how it works because maybe I share with other people. And so kind of empowering way.
I think the sense of empathy, through it, faculty are going to feel ready or willing to do this work. Maybe willing, but maybe not ready yet in terms of knowing, where is my first step? Where's my point of entry to this? How can I get out of my isolation and dealing with this alone and have conversations with others and realize, we can crowdsource our efforts to some degree. What do you think are the hopeful bits moving forward, the strategic moves that we can make that will make a very big lift possible for us?
Do you want to talk about the course, Amy?
I can, and then maybe you could talk a little bit about the website and some of the larger efforts. So I think I might have mentioned this a moment or so ago, but partnering CETL, Wilson Rojas, has partnered with our Office of Distance Education and Karen Howard, and they have been working to develop really an infrastructure for this work because we recognize it's not a one and done. We will continue to grow and learn together. It really is a journey. And they have worked to develop some key faculty who have had an opportunity to do some training over the last few months so they can now pass along both awareness and additional information to their colleagues. And they've also developed a course that will be released around August 4th or so. And the course hits upon some of those priorities that were identified as perhaps the most needed places to start, such as PDFs. We know how reliant we all are on PDFs, yet they are not accessible. So how can we fix that? And so if you are faculty, look for an announcement of a course that you can do through Blackboard Learning here. It's developed into some modules, lots of excellent content, very hands-on. And in addition to the course, I know that the CETL and Wilson will be planning some professional development and workshop experiences throughout the fall. So I think there's much more to come. And one thing we've really emphasized is a very hands-on type of approach. So it feels useful if you're participating in the professional development. You're able to really do some things to your course, to your syllabus as you're participating. And the course is also centered that way.
Yeah. And so the good work of that team also has been working toward a digital accessibility website that we have live, but it's expanding by the day. And so we are focusing on that as being our main hub of information for people to use as a resource as we roll this out. So the Title II team across campus is really representing all of these functional areas. So who is our campus expert on web accessibility? Who is our campus expert on social media accessibility, email accessibility, et cetera? And so we pulled all those people together into this team. And then we also have the academic affairs team integrated in that as well. And they have been tasked with really breaking down the how-to of when they do their work, how do they make it accessible, and how can they put that into plain writing for the web version so that in August, when everyone starts coming back to campus and people are trying to do their due diligence in abiding by this and making sure that their new work is accessible, that we have a website that is a how-to guide. They can go to the website, they can find what it is they're looking for. What task am I trying to accomplish today? Find some tools, get some help. We're not going to be perfect coming out of the gate. We're not going to be perfect by April 26th of 2026. We're probably not going to be perfect a year after that either. But this is a starting place, and we want to continue to provide tools for people to allow them to feel more and more comfortable, so that we go back to the idea of integrating it in as not just a best practice, but their daily practice, that is how we do business now. And so we're focusing on everything from the how-tos to frequently asked questions and everything else that we can find, get our hands on to put out there. And then how do we best organize it on this website again so that we're not overwhelming people that are searching for this information. So it's a big task, but we're a work in progress. And I hope the campus is patient with us as we continue the effort. And there'll be all kinds of communication throughout the year as well. From university relations out to the campus about our efforts and making sure that people feel supported in doing this work.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, do you remember when spell check came out? And it was a little bit clunky and you would have to manually go spell check. And then all of a sudden it became very, very integrated. And I think this work may be similar to that.
It's a very good analogy.
Yeah, that we will be clunky at first. It will feel a bit awkward. But I think eventually it will become embedded into our practice, and it will make us better educators, more accessible campus.
Leah, I'm glad you brought up the standard of perfection as being off the table, because it's one of my least favorite words, but the idea of progress over perfection, that we're making little steps towards it, and we're never going to reach the goal. The end goal is an aspirational one, I guess.
Right.
But in the meanwhile, I think faculty love this sense that there are resources out there that help give them a point of entry into the work. If it's a syllabus tweak, that's already doing the work we're talking about. If it's a newly accessible document, that is progress. If it's a newly conceived assignment, that's a step along the way. So if any one person, one member of our faculty were to adopt one of those things and apply it to all of their courses, there's already in any given semester 3 new points of access. If in another semester they add another 3 or push it to 9, if we're just talking about these granular approaches, that's tripling our impact. And then if we talk about a third of our faculty having gone through the course that's newly available, that's 150, maybe more faculty that have made that point of entry. Now we're talking about thousands of students impacted. So we don't have to do this lift alone. And I love that you've each given us ways of imagining how we can make a difference individually in this.
Yeah, I do think it's important that we all individually as well as collectively prioritize. What is most important? What has the most impact? What reaches the most number of people? We can always deal with the one-offs as we need to, but we really need to focus on our efforts toward what will have the greatest impact. And then we'll get to the other things as we can.
Mm-hmm. And now we're to the tips and tricks portion. Magda, you might have a little example maybe that you could share with us, whether it's something that you're offering your students or that you're suggesting they offer their future students.
Yes, I always tell my students that whenever they design a website, they create resources, they design it for unknown user. And the first are like, what do you mean? I know my students. I'm like, do you really know your students? Do you know your students' grandpa, what computers they have? What if you send email to parents, do they have cell phones or computers? Can they open PDF or Word document? You design for unknown user, and you want to make it as easy for parents or students or grandmas or to reach the resources as it's possible. So whatever you're creating, it has to have that, you have to create with that in mind. So little things like when we're working on creating alternative text for images, I'm telling them just close your eyes and think if you cannot see it. It's not enough if I say image of the girl. I want to say image of the girl's very happy because the puppy next to her does something. It sounds weird. Why do I have to put this whole description? Well, because you're not just describing the picture for computer, you're describing it for the reason. Actually, I just came back from the conference and there's something that I didn't interact with, notice before, but every main speaker, before we talk on stage, they said, hi. So for example, I say, hi, I'm Magda Galloway. I'm a Caucasian female with blonde hair, red glasses, and black shirt. So they were describing themselves, even though they're on stage, because everything was recorded. And I was like, that's interesting. Kind of start thinking in where we're stopping, in what point we're stopping with the descriptions and stuff. But that was different. And why not, right? If I'm just listening, if I don't see it, maybe that who am I, how I present, what descriptors I put for myself, kind of can influence how you listen to me. What do you hear? So yeah. A lot of fixing, but I want to mention something about the challenges. And do we have a challenge segment, I don't want to kind of go ahead. And
We were there.
you okay? Because one
We
thing
can go
is
back.
you are supported, and that's fantastic. But the other thing is that many of us creating content as we go. For example, maybe it's just my domain. I'm dealing with technology. Like last 2 years, every time I open resources, there's something new about AI or about So I have to redo my lecture, redo resources, literally sometimes within few weeks. Well, if I create video, I need to have it captioned. It takes time. When I'm captioning things, I cannot have auto captions because my accent kind of sometimes auto caption doesn't caption it. Then I'm going through some challenges. It's like, okay, as I was recording my lecture, some of my sentences were not 100% grammatically correct. I missed the article here and there. Are my captions supposed to correct it or not? What if I have a guest speaker who has the accent? Kind of things that you start. And when you start piling up those little things, you're like, okay, maybe I just want to record this lecture. Maybe I can punt it for the next semester. So those are the challenges of kind of urgent thing and how much time it takes to create new, well thought of, material for your students to interact with.
So faculty will be making judgments and should feel empowered to make those judgments about their situations and their capacity. And we haven't talked about perhaps the challenge. We've talked about the empathy for the challenges that our students might face, but I also think we should communicate that empathy towards our faculty who are dealing with these challenges that we hand them, and realize that your sincere effort is everything. That's what matters, not a legalistic standard that we're going to hold up. Right now, it's about cultural change, mindset change, and it's probably premature in many cases to talk about best practices. It's helpful practices that we're really trying to encourage.
And if I were Magda's colleague, I would say, please do not punt that for next semester. Because one thing I fear is if faculty do become overwhelmed, they may be inclined to just change their content to avoid some content because of the challenge of feeling I don't have the time to do this as I should. And I don't want faculty to do that. I don't want them to punt. I truly am thinking about this as what's one small step, not perfection. There's a lot, that we can continue to think about, but if it's, merely making a PDF accessible at this moment, I would prefer doing that small step than throwing it out the door because I didn't feel like I could do it all.
Yeah.
We had a question early in our process from a faculty member who asked us, well, who's going to be monitoring my work? And is there going to be someone kind of policing me and calling me out if I don't meet 100% compliance? And, let us say loud and clear here today, that's not what this is about. We're not monitoring. No one's set up to be monitoring anyone on this. But really, it is about, as Magda said, that the empathy of this. Put yourselves in the shoes of someone who relies on our work to be accessible. What does it look like if we haven't taken those steps? And let that be the motivation, not 100% compliance, but really just being mindful of trying to serve our students and our colleagues in the best way possible.
Leah, that just reminded me, one thing I've been encouraging faculty to think about as they're engaging in some of this revision around making their courses more accessible is to give themselves credit for this as they're thinking about their university faculty activity report, as they're thinking about their teaching and their goals and their reflections. This work can be built into that, so it doesn't feel like an add-on. Rather, it feels like this is a goal I've set for myself. I'm going to hold myself accountable, talk about it in my faculty reflection, and receive credit for it in my evaluation letter. And I think that would be a really meaningful way to approach this work instead of perhaps thinking about it as, oh, there's one more thing that I have to do. Yeah. How can I integrate it?
But there's it's kind of parallel who will monitor me, right? Who will check if I have everything according to the title 2? But like it's the same with the copyrights. I mean, not everyone will be checking if my images are copyrighted, my resource, if my little picture I put in my slideshow are copyrighted. But someone may. Mm-hmm. Who knows? First of all, you don't know where your resources go, who is in your classroom. Maybe someone actually from out there, some parent will call you out on it. Or students will call you out. Our students are very aware these days. They very just. I don't know. They seek justice for their colleagues, for themselves. They may call you out. I mean, that'll be kind of embarrassing if they ask you about, do you have some alternative way to provide the information, and you say no, right? I mean, as a faculty, you kind of need to be ready to say either, honestly, not yet. Can you help me? Can you work with me on that? But just no, right? Yeah, that would be embarrassing.
That's a good point.
I think it speaks to our professionalism and ethics as faculty, doing the right thing. While this is a mandate, it's also about equity and justice, just like we would do the right thing related to copyright or some of those other areas of professional ethics.
And we do need people to give us feedback as we continue to try to improve in this in the coming years. We need the feedback on where are our roadblocks as we as employees of the university, if we are trying in our best manner to move this forward, but we're not able to get there because there's some kind of institutional roadblock in the way. We have to be able to feel comfortable speaking up about that and making it known so that we can look at it from a broader lens for the institution and remove those roadblocks or find alternatives.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place to end it, is to say, please be in touch with our offices about the challenges that you're facing. And we want to be able to rise to those challenges in our work. So reach out. I'm struck by Lee Shulman's idea of teaching as community property. He thought as a aspiring professor that scholarship was going to be the lonely thing he did and teaching was going to be where he found community. But he got out there into the field and he realized, I have a scholarly community. I see them at conferences all the time. But in teaching, I'm alone with it. And there is that risk that our work in teaching gets us separated into our, an independent sphere that we value in many ways, but it can at times like this be the thing that makes us feel like it's hard to take action. So reach out to your colleagues, to us, and with great ideas that you have, we'd love to be able to share those with the campus more broadly.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you all
Thanks.
for your thoughts, to be continued with the
That's
good work
right.
of Wilson and the Title II Committee.